Hi everyone, I'm here with Alex Walker, who is a renowned Kenyan guide and conservationist. He is the founder of the Serian camps, which are kind of eco-chic luxury in the Serengeti and the Masai Mara, with lots of different options, which we'll go over with Alex just now. They're particularly famous for their experiences kind of outside of the vehicle, the walking, the fly camping, and the most amazing private guides. So I can't wait to hear more about it. Alex, the last time I was at Serian, I was with Baraka in the southern Serengeti end of March, and it was one of the most amazing safaris I've ever done. Have you been in and out of the bush during this whole pandemic, kind of keeping an eye on everything?
Oh, I wish. Rose, how are you doing? To be honest, I've been sort of locked up in Nairobi, but living vicariously through everybody in the bush,
Yeah.
and heading off actually this later this week. So yeah, Tanzania's been awesome. The guys have had a lot of fun. It's been a super wet year.
Yeah.
It's had its own challenges, apart from obviously all the current issues, but it's very beautiful right now.
Yeah. I've heard of quite a few. There's a few bridges that have been washed away and things like that, and they're just about kind of actually the pandemic's given everyone a bit more time to get them fixed, I think.
Yeah, they've come back. I mean, the guys, of course, the national parks and everybody, they're still out there. Brian and his crew in the Mara Triangle, the guys in Mara North, despite sort of what's going on. I mean, on Serian, our bridge got wiped out. I think it was probably in April, May, when we had those really big floods came through. But yeah, it's back in place. Some new pictures coming out soon. So yeah, it's life has had its challenges, but we're sort of all managing to get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. The footbridge to Ngaro Serian is one of the most exciting things about the camp. So did it got washed away, did it, and has had to be rebuilt?
Yeah, it did. The floods actually came up probably, I mean, a good 2 meters higher than ever before.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
mean, normally the bridges probably 6 to 8 meters higher than the water level. So it shows you. I mean, that river's about 800 meters wide at that point.
Wow.
Whoever can do the maths will tell you how much, sort of in terms of volume, will be pumping through there. But yeah, it was big time.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning then, from your kind of early life in the bush, and how did you kind of end up knowing that you wanted to be a guide? And was it kind of always in your genes, in your family?
I think it was a very easy choice, to be honest. I mean, I sort of always wonder how people struggle so much over these. What you're going to do. As a kid, you're always in the bush. My dad, my granddad, everybody sort of taking us out, and you, age 5, 6, 7, all you want to do is mess around in the backyard. Or it's in the backyard in those days was a big pile of sort of wilderness and emptiness,
Wow.
and so life just sort of takes you there. You unconsciously make the choices.
And did you start guiding from a really young age then? Were you kind of straight out on safari with clients as soon as you could, as soon as you kind of left school?
Yeah, it's when I left school after A levels, I didn't actually do that well with the A levels. I think I was just too busy looking out of the window. Um, but yeah, straight out, and went an apprentice with a friend of my dad's for a couple of years, and yeah, so yeah, age 17 was sort of starting into the guiding life, and in those days it was sort of maybe a lot simpler. It was basically learnt on the job, so it was really an apprenticeship,
Yeah.
which was the schooling that you went through.
Do you remember any exciting memories from those first couple of years guiding? Any times that you thought, "Oh, I think I would have done that a bit differently next time," or
I think there's a lot of those little sort of snippets that teach you. It's like everything. If you don't sort of fail at something, you've got to fail at something in order to get better at it. I think we'd sort of trying to think. Probably the one of the most fun things was really with lions in Tanzania. Um, we used to do a lot of walking, and we'd put these blinds into water holes and things to sort of get in early and go and watch stuff. And of course, walking in the dark is always going to be a sort of a fun space to be. So you take your sort of shoes and socks off, and you potter in quietly, and you go and sit in these little grass thatched huts that you'd sort of built on tucked away behind a dead tree or something. And then you suddenly realize that the lion's been watching you the whole time, and now he's come to sort of discover what the hell it is that's sort of sitting in this behind this grass fence. It sort of wakes you up, that's for sure. You certainly get an appreciation for life.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. And so, when did you start Serian, and how did it all kind of come about?
So I guess the traditional mold is that you'd apprentice with somebody, and then you then sort of started to get one or two clients of your own, and you then bought a couple of tents and a car, and you set off on mobile safaris. Really, I mean, for years and years. I mean, to give you an example, it was probably right up 88, 89 that we used to be able to camp out in the bottom of the crater, Ngorongoro crater.
Oh, how amazing!
And so you had your little camp, and you went with it. I mean, there really weren't all the lodges and camps. I mean, the plethora of incredible sort of accommodation that's out there today. In those days, you basically had to carry it on your back, so your crew would go out in front of you with your truck, and you go and put your tents out, and you just keep shifting, and you just decide we're having great fun here, let's stay for an extra few days. Not much happening, pack the gear up, let's move on, let's shift. And so you'd shift with the camp sort of in situ, and just keep busting around. So you really, I mean, the safari was decided on what date are you coming? Okay, send me the flight details, I'll meet you. And then what date are you leaving? And in between, you just made it up. So, that was the start of it all. And then slowly over the years, you found more players getting into the game, and then those campsites, those sort of special little spaces that you'd use, started getting occupied by more permanent facilities.
Yeah.
And that's really when you then had to think, am I going to keep doing the sort of mobile trips around the edges and get pushed further and further away? Or do we sort of settle on and put our feet down in a particular place? I guess the sort of Serian as it exists today, as opposed to what we're doing sort of 30, 35 years ago, is based on I got really bad malaria, which sort of put me out of work for about sort of 6-8 months.
Yeah.
And on the back of that, I just needed something a little bit more a simpler base rather than shifting around.
Yeah.
And we ended up putting Serian in the Mara. And yeah, so from then on, it's when you put your roots down somewhere, little bits keep getting at it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is the most incredible location, and it's the most lovely camp. And so in the Mara, you've got Serian, which you call the original, which is your first camp. You've got Ngari Serian, which is over the footbridge, which is more you kind of promote that more for exclusive use, I think, don't you? Especially at the moment, it's going to be the perfect place for a family or.
Yeah, so I mean, all the camps. I mean, sort of, if you think of our roots is that small mobile unit, a lot of walking and mixing it up, and so all the camps are small, but Garisarian's the smallest, 4 tents. So yeah, perfect for private groups and the like. It sits on this amazing little sort of on the part of the river with these little rapids and then a couple of big hippopods. You got that incredible area behind it up to the Ololo Escarpment, which has no roads, nobody else in there. We've deliberately kept it free of vehicles, so that you've got this incredible sort of walking space. You can climb that 600, 800 meter high escarpment and get up there above what's happening out there in the Mara and get a sort of big bird's eye view. It's very cool.
Which is incredible. And that's where you've got the nest as well, haven't you? Where people can kind of overnight. You walk up there. Is that for kind of
Yeah, so the
couples?
nest actually is down on the river. Now, we originally put
Okay.
it up on the escarpment. We use the escarpment for fly camping. So we take the little tents or just sleep out on bedrolls up there. And then the nest now sort of sits over a salt lick on one side and the hippopod on the other side.
Oh my God.
So you've got that sort of space going on. And that's just a nice, simple little tree house. Yeah, it's just a nice sleep out, I guess. It can be sort of a romantic environment for privacy, and it can be this awesome little wildlife space, sort of little adventure. You've got leopards calling at night time, you've got hippos out munching the grass, the elephant come through. In the moonlit nights, it's quite incredible how bright it is out there.
Yeah.
And you can just see everything come past.
Oh, how amazing. Because that's something that obviously all the camps that you have are so famous for is just doing things outside of the vehicle. The game drives don't have to be the focus at all. You've got walking, you've got the fly camping, you've got the nest, and you do really try and give people a proper African experience, as you say, kind of, all harking back to the days of the kind of early mobile safaris, which you were doing.
I think it's about freedom, too much of today has become very structured. Game drive from such and such time to such and such time, and today we're going to go down this road, tomorrow that way, next day somewhere else. Today's a Burma dinner, tomorrow's a library dinner, next day is the whole thing for us is I mean, the wilderness is sort of natural space, and the weather plays a part, the animal movement plays a part, the seasons play a part in terms of what food is where. You need to be able to adjust, and you can have all the intentions of the world of leaving camp and going left for an hour in the morning, when the reality is that you get 100 meters from camp and you find some lion tracks, and they take you right, and you stay within 500 meters of camp for the whole day.
Yeah.
So flexibility is really the key element to interpreting what's going on and just having fun. When you try and mold nature to your will, you're trying to force a result.
Yeah.
When you just sit back and let it tell its story and let it lead you where it will, then it gives so much. I think the biggest thing is just having time, just not being in a rush and just enjoying it for what it brings to you. And maybe that's something that everybody's learning over this period, is that you when you slow down, you actually see more and you take in a whole load more. I think people have probably been enjoying their little garden spaces if they're lucky enough to have them.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes the best kind of wildlife sightings you have is when you've just sat patiently waiting somewhere to see what comes. And I suppose that's why places like the Nest are so special if you've got the salt lick there, because you'll get dropped there or walk there, you'll walk there and then you'll sit there and wait, and then that's when it kind of all unfolds.
Yeah, it's that's very much about it. It's observation. I mean, if you your typical game drive would be sort of rushing around trying to find a lion, find a leopard, find an elephant, and then punching around, sort of hopefully, reacting to radio calls, chasing off after one sighting or another, got lions hunting or something, and the next thing you were off cruising a nice little riverbed looking for some leopard, and the next thing guys are putting foot and rushing half an hour away from where you were to go and see something that the radio called in. The reality is that if you just sort of kept on going down your way and just stopped and turned the engine off and started to listen, that your ears would guide you to a leopard in a tree. The monkeys
Mm.
would be calling, the birds would be making noise, you know, and it just happens sort of organically and neatly. It just sort of there's more. It's more rewarding
Mm.
in
Yeah.
that vein. Sadly, today's world is a little bit of an ADHD sort of a environment,
Mm.
and guys have been shown all the sort of amazing sort of moments on National Geographic and the like. Um, reality, I mean, the best sighting, one of the best sightings I ever had was actually I'd been walking down the river, and we were headed back to camp. It was sort of late afternoon, early evening, sort of 5:30. It was a little bit dusty, very dry, and we could see two little dik-diks playing sort of about 200 meters away, and they were just chasing each other and running around and chasing and just getting closer. So we just sat down on the sort of hippo trail that we were on, and they just came closer and closer and rushing and playing. And then there was a little one involved, so there's three little dik-dik there, and then they literally walked up to about a meter and a half, 2 meters from us.
Oh, how
Then he
lovely.
goes the big eyes and the eyelashes and the nose sort of sniffing all over the place, and they just had no idea that we were there. But that all played out over sort of a half hour, and yeah, definitely one of the most memorable sightings that you could wish for. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love that because it's not always just about the big stuff. And that's what's so nice about taking things a bit slower is that you do then see unusual things which is happening kind of all around you with the smaller things. Um, the locations of your camps are very fortunate to be in locations where you are going to see the big stuff. You will see the big stuff, but with your guides as well, they'll draw attention to the other smaller things, and those will be the things that make your safari, not just kind of seeing endless lion and leopard and cheetah. So it's a big plus point for the Serian camps.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's. I mean, location, location, location. I mean, it's
yeah,
the old adage in many ways, and they're not being put there by mistake. It's just these are spaces that have worked for us. Um, there are one or two places that are seasonal, so you need to sort of shift and move.
yeah,
Reality is actually, if you stay, they've also got a whole different sort of game comes into play. But certainly, the Masai Mara is amazing because it's just it's a 12-month destination, and that's
mm,
maybe another thing that may play into our hands. Is that people will become less seasonally focused on
mm,
travel, because the reality is when we talk about high season and low season in the travel industry, it means peak season as in terms of numbers of travelers. The reality is on the ground that the wildlife and the lions, the leopards, and everything, they're always there, and it's those shoulder seasons, the period of time when people don't normally travel, that are generally the best because there's no pressure on the environment. There's no, the volume of other traffic and stuff around is minimal, and you get to enjoy these incredible spaces to yourselves. Um, and it's special.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's often misleading to people because they do just see that the wording, which is, as you say, is high and low season or shoulder season. And as you say, that is actually just with regards to how many people want to come. Not that it means that it's a bad time of year to go, but that's also our responsibility as agents. And it's like that's on our shoulders really to make sure people are aware. But I completely agree because I'm often will come to East Africa in what they would call the low season, and it's my favorite time. Um, so conservation's been hit quite hard by the pandemic because a lot of those initiatives are funded by tourism and just by people on the ground, basically people traveling. And so I know that there's lots of people coming up with different ideas on how we can fund conservation now. What kind of initiatives do you think are doing the best job at the moment? And what do you guys get involved with that you approve of and that other people could get behind? Because I think there are people that want to get behind the smaller organisations now, not just put money into the big charities.
I think, so first of all, I mean, yes, the income has been massively hit. When you think of somewhere like the Serengeti National Park, it survives on park fees. That's what pays the bills. But that money's not coming in right now. The funds that they've had in the past are sent to Central Treasury, and they've been used in Tanzania basically to build roads and provide power, water, all this sort of essential services and the like. So we're really we need that support. So your park fee, I mean, and I think this is a story that's untold. People don't realize how much, just by coming on safari, just by spending your 10 days, your 2 weeks, the significant amount, 30, 35%, 40% of what you pay is going directly into conservation in some form, whether it's a park fee, whether it's the access fees for the vehicles, or it's the money that we have to pay up front to put the camps in place. And these are what fund the desnaring teams. They're what fund the patrols, the rangers, the roads and the bridges that we were talking about earlier. And they're what pay the communities on the outside. Wildlife at the end of the day is an asset, and if it doesn't pay, it doesn't stay, because the rural communities need to make a living. So if the wildlife is not helping them pay their bills, then they'll plant wheat or maize or run cattle on those areas, something that will make a return for them. So it's really important that the parks and the conservancies see some sort of an income, and of course that's our big challenge right now. Guys have been raising funds by selling photographs. There've been guys out there doing bike rides today as we speak. They're doing sort of ride for rangers from Land's End to John O'Groats, or I can't remember, whichever way it is. So there's a lot of very special initiatives. We're heavily invested in the Mara North Conservancy. Is one of our prime things that we helped start, and that was really about getting the park fees, getting the income shared equitably across the communities, and helping the Maasai landowners understand what a viable asset that they have. And getting them to sort of reduce the number of livestock and the depredation of the environment in terms of charcoal or farming and things like that. Getting them to see the benefits of tourism as a partner in the business. And so, it's tough right now because we don't have that income to help pay them. And then, but the reality is, I think that through job opportunities, and that's probably the principal way forward for many of the guys, is tourism is a massive opportunity for guys who have that innate skill, that intelligence, but without the education. And it gives them a chance to, you can start as a bottle washer and you can end up as a camp manager or as a guide, making a significant sort of salary to help, your family and educate your own kids and move forward. So without tourism, it's a big loss of opportunity for many of the guys in the rural areas surrounding these spaces. And trying to keep them occupied and keep them away from more traditional sort of aspects of what we loosely term as poaching now, the meat, guys going getting meat and the like. The snaring, which happens in a lot on sort of the western sides of the Serengeti, is kept in check by there's incredible hard work of the ranger teams, the desnaring teams of the national parks, in conjunction with the Frankfurt Zoological Society. And that's one group that we've really put a lot of effort in to try and help and raise funds for them. Very kind donations from clients, past clients, the sale of some artwork, and the pre-sale of some safaris. I think importantly, I go back to the initial point. People don't realize how much their money really helps. And the deposit that you pay for a safari, the initial money, often goes to setting up camps and putting them in place. But that money gets paid to the national parks because we also pay fees. And with that, they put these teams into place and run the sort of desnaring projects and the anti-poaching teams. And our product is not the camp. Our product is not the accommodation. That's a byproduct. The product is people don't come to Africa to stay in a hotel or have a good meal. They come to see the wildlife and come to walk and come to game drive and do it. So protecting that product is the utmost necessity to all of us. And we're just custodians. We're looking after it at this time in our lives for future generations. Yeah. So it's not a burden. It's a pleasure, but it's a tough one sometimes. Trying to sort of locate the help and get some funds. And it's not just about money. It can be very much. It can be intellectual capacity. It could be help doing accounting. It could be design work. It could be photography and social media sort of, and just sharing the word, the knowledge, and the passion and belief, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a really tough time for everyone at the moment. I feel like we're all just holding on by the skin of our teeth. And then, if this continues, we are going to see a lot more closures from places, and that is going to have such a detrimental effect. But hopefully we'll start to see a kind of pick up now. So you've obviously travelled quite a lot of Africa guiding anyway, not just East Africa, or maybe it could be in East Africa. But what's your favourite part of Africa apart from where your camps are? Where have you loved in the past?
Take me to a space where there's nobody else, I guess is the answer to that. I've always liked, the south and west of Tanzania is an incredible sort of wild space. But I mean, southern Sudan was definitely, as a child, I sort of brought up in the Imatong Mountains on the edge of southern Sudan with northern Uganda near Kidepo National Park.
Wow.
Very similar to, say, the Aberdares or the highlands around Ngorongoro. And that was just big empty space. I really enjoyed going back to Congo recently. The Brazzaville Congo. There's some really awesome, really sort of wild and way out sort of places. We've become very structured in Eastern and Southern Africa. We've become the tourism industry has become an industry, whereas there's still some wild spaces that you can go and tack into, but getting a little bit off piste is really what I've always enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get that. And that very much comes across in the camps, especially the ones in Tanzania, which you have managed to find kind of locations which are in the thick of it, but not with any other people around, or as few people as possible. So that definitely comes across. And then this is obviously always my favourite question. Can we have some of your most exciting and memorable wildlife encounters? I would think you've got quite a few.
Yeah, you see, this is the questions that need a little whiskey to help them come out.
Round the campfire, exactly.
They're locked away in the deep dark recesses of your mind. Yeah, it's a tough. I mean, there's lots of fun stuff over the years. I mean, it's about sort of some. A lot of the times it's just not what everybody expects in terms of like big charges and
Mm.
sort of dangerous situations. And it's more about the peace and the quiet and the sometimes it's actually not even about sort of real animal action. It's the best places for me have always been, um, just sitting on the edge of a little river and the bird life sort of chattering away. We're very lucky here. I have a house on the edge of the Ololua forest here in Nairobi, and the Tarako and the birds are just super active and chatty, and it lends life. It's like a house with you got a house full of kids and the like. The place is just full of life. And Africa's like that. You find the right space, you just turn the car off, or you walk into a space and you sit and you listen. And when you change from being the person that's zooming around in a car trying to force a sighting, and you actually just turn off and sit and listen, that's where the magic happens. And I was just thinking because we were talking about the Congo earlier, this incredible flock of grey parrots that sort of flew over us while we were just sitting having a sandwich when we were out walking along the bayous and things. Sitting in the middle of a big herd of elephant, as it just walks around you, and you're there on foot and just tucked in at the base of a tree, or if you're lucky enough to have a sort of place where you can find a nice copy, sort of a rock sitting over the top of a waterhole or something. I think those are the moments that sort of remain with you. They're soothing, rather than the sort of ferocious action of something charging you.
Yeah, I think definitely those are the moments that kind of make you absolutely fall in love with Africa, and that you'll remember forever. The adrenaline-filled ones, I don't think are usually the reasons that people want to come back. But luckily, due to the kind of the quality of guiding and their knowledge, it happens very, very little. We very rarely get clients coming back saying they've had an adrenaline-filled experience, but they've had these kind of magical moments like you're talking about, and that's what makes it really special. Oh, Alex, that's been so amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. I bet you're looking forward to getting back to the bush then in the next couple of days.
Yeah, no, I definitely am. It's I'll be there in a couple of 3 days. I've been it's FOMO,
Yeah.
where everybody's sending out all these great pictures, and you're sitting there, sort of feeding them out. And luckily, in terms of the business, I got stuck here. Unluckily for myself, I got stuck here. But now get a chance to get out and back in the field for a few months, which is perfect.
Oh, well, I'm very envious, and I can't thank you enough for that. And I'll catch up with you very soon anyway.
Super, Rose. Thank you, and stay well.